I never envisioned that my own parents would one day gaze into my eyes and declare that my children were unwelcome in their home. Yet there I stood in my kitchen, staring at my phone in disbelief. Thanksgiving was just weeks away, and my mother's tone was surprisingly light as she said, "Honey, we need to talk about Thanksgiving this year." For a fleeting moment my heart warmed, recalling the tension that had lingered between us over the years. I still yearned for these cherished family traditions, and my kids, Emma and Oliver, adored them. Grandparents, despite the distance that had formed. "Of course, Mom, what's the plan?" I asked, already picturing the way their house would be filled with the smell of roasted turkey, cinnamon, and the warmth of a family gathering. There was a brief pause, just long enough to send a chill down my spine. "Well," Mom continued, clearing her throat, "this year we're doing things a little differently. It's going to be a smaller dinner, just adults, something more intimate." I frowned. "Oh, so no kids at all?" Another pause, then more. Hesitantly, I felt a cold knot twisting in my stomach. "What do you mean?" Mom let out a sigh, as if she were the one facing an uncomfortable truth. "Charlotte, we love your kids, we really do. But they're a bit, energetic. Honestly, we just feel like it would be better if you left them with a sitter this year." I gripped the edge of the counter. "So just my kids? What about Christopher's?" Christopher, my older brother, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes, even when did Mom hesitate? That's when I realized Christopher and Madison were coming with their boys. She admitted it, "But you know how well behaved they are, Charlotte. They're just quieter, more refined. It's easier to have them at the table." A wave of heat flushed through me. I felt as if I had been slapped, as though the floor had suddenly been pulled out from under me. "They're just children," I said, my voice tight. "Emma is 7 and Oliver is 4. Of course they have energy, but they're sweet, and they love you. We're just trying to have a—" It was a peaceful evening when Mom replied, her tone clipped, revealing her irritation that I wasn't simply accepting this. "It's not personal, Charlotte. Not personal." I clenched my jaw, swallowing back the sharp words that fought to spill out. It wasn't just about Thanksgiving, it was the way they had always treated my children like an afterthought while placing Christopher's boys on a pedestal. The way they showed up at their school plays but never attended Emma's dance recital. The way Christmas gifts were always just a little extra for Christopher's family, children, and now they were no longer concealing it. I couldn't fathom this. I whispered, "You're actually telling me that my children aren't welcome, but Daniel's are?" "Oh, Charlotte, don't be dramatic," Mom replied. "It's just one dinner. You and Jackson are still invited, of course." I nearly laughed at the ridiculousness of it all. They wanted me there, yet not the two people I cherish most in this world. I swallowed hard. "No, Mom, if my kids aren't welcome, then neither am I." A long silence stretched between us, and then Mom exhaled sharply, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "Unreasonable. Suit yourself." Just like that, she hung up. I stood there, staring at the phone, my breath unsteady. I could hear my kids in the next room, giggling as they built a pillow fort, oblivious to the fact that their grandparents, the ones they adored, had just cast them aside like an inconvenience. I took a deep breath, my mind racing. I'd spent my whole life trying to please my parents, trying to earn their approval, but at what cost? And if I let them get away with this, if I went to that dinner while my children sat at home, pondering the reasons behind my perceived inadequacies, what kind of mother would that make me? I resolved to no longer endure this. They had made their choice, and now it was my turn to make mine. They would come to regret it sooner than they anticipated. The weight of my mother's words hung heavily in the air long after the call had ended. I stood in my kitchen, the quiet hum of the refrigerator filling the void. My phone remained clutched in my hand, my fingers trembling as I finally set it down. My heart raced, a tumultuous blend of anger and sadness coursing through me. I had always understood my parents favored Christopher, yet I had managed to persuade myself that the situation wasn't as dire as it appeared, that beneath it all, they cherished each of us equally. But tonight, they had shattered any semblance of fairness, no longer bothering to conceal their preference. Their affection for his children was glaringly evident. A sudden carefree laugh rang out from the living room, drawing my attention to Emma and Oliver, blissfully engaged in their pillow fort, oblivious to the sting of rejection that had just unfolded. My heart ached. They deserved so much more. I straightened my posture and stepped into In the living room, I forced a smile, steadying my voice more than I felt. "All right, you two. Who's ready for movie night?" Oliver perked up immediately. Can we watch the one with the talking dog? I scooped him into my arms, kissing his soft curls. Of course we can, buddy. But as we curled up on the couch, the anger within me refused to settle. I had spent years trying to fit into my parents' world, playing by their rules, hoping that if I just did everything right, they would finally see me as equal to Christopher. Yet it had never been enough and I was done trying. The next morning, I woke up to a text from my brother Christopher. Mom said you're being difficult about Thanksgiving. Why do you always have to make everything so dramatic? I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. Of course, she had already run to him. Oh, so she told you she uninvited my kids but invited yours? The typing bubbles appeared, then stopped. A minute passed before he finally responded. Christopher, she just wants a calm dinner. Charlotte, you know how your kids can be. A lot. A lot like they were a burden. They treated me as if I were merely a burden to be endured rather than cherished. In that moment, something within me broke. Enjoy your perfect Thanksgiving, Christopher. I won't be there. I silenced my phone before he could reply. They didn't want me or my children at their table, and that was fine. I would no longer be a part of their world, and soon they would understand the true implications of that choice. For years I had been the dependable one, the one who always stepped in when they needed assistance. When my parents required someone to fetch their groceries, they called me. When their Wi-Fi malfunctioned, it was me they turned to. In the midst of my efforts, I found myself the one who drove over to lend a hand when they sought assistance in organizing a family gathering. I was the one burdened with making calls and running errands, while Christopher basked in the role of the golden child, contributing little yet reaping all the rewards. It became clear that if I wasn't part of their favorite circle, they would no longer benefit from my presence. A week before Thanksgiving, my mother reached out once more. I hesitated, contemplating whether to ignore the call, but ultimately decided to answer. Hello, Charlotte, she said, her tone laced with caution. I just wanted to check in. I know you were upset, but I truly hope you'll reconsider. We would love to have you and Jackson there. Just you and Jackson, not you and the kids. I took a deep breath. I meant what I said, Mom. If my kids aren't welcome, neither am I. She sighed heavily as if I were exhausting her. I just don't understand why you're being so stubborn. It's just one night. You know how much Christopher's boys mean to us. And there it was, the final painful confirmation that my children, the two little humans I loved more than anything, would never be enough for her. I clenched my jaw. You've made it clear where we stand, Mom. I won't bother you again. Charlotte, don't be like this. I ended the call before she could finish, and this time I didn't cry. I started small. When my dad called me that weekend to help him set up his new TV, I let the call go to voicemail. When my mom sent a text asking if I could pick up her prescription, I left it unread. For years I had been at their beck and call, always available, always reliable. But not anymore. It didn't take long for them to notice. By the time Thanksgiving rolled around, in the midst of it all, I had overlooked a total of 12 calls and dismissed 6 texts. Then, on Thanksgiving morning, a message from Christopher arrived. Christopher's mom and dad are really upset that you're ignoring them. Are you seriously going to let this go this far? For me, it had already gone too far when they declared my kids unwelcome. He didn't respond. I silenced my phone and focused on my true family. Emma and Oliver were at the table, assisting Jackson in mixing pancake batter, their laughter echoing as they became dusted in flour. This was our moment. Thanksgiving arrived, and for the first time in years, I found myself enveloped in a profound sense of peace. Little did I know, my parents had other plans, and their next move would be one I could never forgive. The morning unfolded with a tranquility I hadn't known in ages. No frantic rush to dress the kids in their finest attire. No stress over crafting the perfect side dish. No anxious glances at the clock to ensure we wouldn't be late. Instead, we existed in our own little haven, our home resonating with laughter and filled with the inviting aroma of pancakes and maple syrup. Emma and Oliver took turns stirring the batter, while Jackson flipped the pancakes with a flair that made them giggle each time he nearly dropped one. For the first time in ages, I felt a sense of freedom. Then my phone rang. I glanced at the screen, Mom. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, it rang again, and then again. Jackson shot me a concerned look. Want me to turn it off? He asked. I hesitated, then shook my head. If it's an emergency, I should at least know. I swiped to answer, keeping my voice flat. What is it, Mom? Now you pick up, she huffed. I suppose you're just sitting at home feeling sorry for yourself while we're all here having a lovely dinner. I sighed. Mom, if you call to gloat, I really don't have time. Her voice turned sharp. I need to ask you something. I pinched the bridge of my nose. What now? Did you cancel the credit card? The room suddenly felt very still. I turned away from Jackson and lowered my voice. What are you talking about? Your father's credit card. The one we've been using for groceries, gas, Essential things were declined this morning, and a slow, icy realization crept up my spine. The credit card she was talking about wasn't theirs, it was mine. Years ago, when Dad was recovering from surgery and money was tight, I had added them as authorized users on my account temporarily, just to help them through a rough patch. I had meant to remove them when they got back on their feet, but life got busy and I had forgotten. They had never reminded me. I clenched my jaw. You mean my credit card? A pause then. Mom, scoffing, she said. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Charlotte. It's just a card. You make good money and we thought you understood that you'd keep using my money without me noticing. Her voice dripped with disdain. Don't act like this is some grand betrayal. We raised you. The least you could do is support us now. I inhaled sharply, disbelief coursing through me. Are you serious? After telling me my kids weren't good enough to come to Thanksgiving, you still expect me to keep paying for your groceries? Are you even hearing yourself? Mom let out a long, drawn-out sigh. With a dramatic sigh, I turned to Charlotte. This is precisely why we avoid difficult conversations with you. You always overreact. I was finished. You're right about one thing, I said, my voice dangerously calm. I did cancel the card. And since we're being honest, let me make something very clear, you won't see another cent from me ever. Mom gasped as if I had slapped her. Charlotte, don't be ridiculous, she started, but I cut her off. And while we're at it, don't expect Christmas gifts, birthday gifts, or anything else. Anything else? You made your choice when you told me my kids weren't welcome, and now I'm making mine. Silence hung in the air, and then in a voice colder than I'd ever heard from her, she said, You'll regret this, before hanging up. For a moment I stood there, gripping the phone so tightly my fingers ached. Slowly I turned back toward the kitchen. Jackson was watching me carefully. Everything okay? He asked. I forced a small smile. Yeah, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. Just taking out the trash. He didn't ask any more questions. We spent the remainder of the day immersed in our own Thanksgiving, indulging in movies, baking cookies, and playing board games. For the first time in years, there was an absence of underlying stress, no need to tread lightly, no pressure to be someone I wasn't. Yet, as serene as it felt, an instinct whispered that this tranquility was fleeting. I was correct in my intuition, for my parents were not simply going to allow their golden source of income to slip away. Their next move would reveal the true nature of their character, and the silence from them was telling. 3 days after Thanksgiving, my phone lit up with an incoming call from Christopher. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. I exhaled sharply and answered, What do you want? What the hell, Charlotte? He snapped, skipping any pleasantries. Mom just called me in tears saying you cut them off. What is wrong with you? I closed my eyes, pinching the bridge of my nose. Did she also tell you that they've been using my credit card for years without my knowledge? There was a pause. Well, she said you were helping them out. I let out a sigh. A humorless laugh escaped Christopher as he reflected on the thousands of dollars charged to his account without consent, all while his children were treated poorly. But sure, let's pretend I'm the villain here, he sighed, visibly struggling to rein in his frustration. I understand your anger, but severing ties entirely seems drastic. I retorted, You mean the way they completely left my children out of Thanksgiving? They just wanted a quiet evening, Charlotte's mom interjected. My grip on the phone tightened. Oh, I see, so it's acceptable for them to dismiss my kids. Money, but my children aren't worthy of their table, understood. He groaned, You're twisting this. No, Christopher, I'm finally seeing it for what it is. A long pause ensued, then his voice shifted to a calculating tone. Look, maybe we can work something out. What if you just kept helping them but set limits, like a smaller monthly transfer? That way, no one has to suffer over a misunderstanding. A cold laugh bubbled up in my throat. Let me get this straight. You want me to keep sending them money after they literally told me they love your kids more than mine? They didn't mean it like that, he grumbled. They said it, Christopher. He had no response for that. After a moment, his voice turned stiff. Fine, if you want to be selfish, that's on you. But don't expect Mom and Dad to forgive you anytime soon. I smirked, shaking my head. I'll survive. Then before he could argue, I hung up. For the next few weeks, my parents played the silent treatment game. No calls, no texts. I figured they were hoping I'd cave, come crawling back, begging for their approval like I always did. But what they didn't realize was that for the first time in my life, I didn't need it anymore. Just when I thought they'd finally given up, they pulled one last desperate stunt. It was the week before Christmas when the letter arrived. Jackson found it in the mailbox, his brow furrowing as he read the sender's name. "It's from your parents." I stiffened. "Oh great, let me guess. Guilt, manipulation, or straight-up gaslighting?" He smirked. "Why don't we find out?" I took the envelope, my stomach twisting as I tore it open. Inside was as I perused the formal legal document, my breath caught in my throat at the audacity of the words before me. They were demanding reimbursement for years of emotional and financial support. A disbelieving laugh escaped my lips. Surely this was a joke. Jackson snatched the letter from my hands, his eyes darting over the text with urgency. "They're saying you owe them for raising you and for all the financial sacrifices they made for your well-being?" His jaw tightened as he met my gaze. "Are they actually trying to bill you for your own childhood?" It seemed they were, and to my astonishment they had even included itemized costs, things like food, clothes, school supplies, medical expenses from my childhood, and at the bottom of the page, a final sum, $785.42. I blinked. "They seriously think I'm going to give them nearly 80 grand? Jackson scoffed. "They must be desperate." I exhaled slowly, anger burning through me. This wasn't about money. This was control, a final, desperate attempt to pull me back into their grip. I looked at Jackson, my mind already made up. "I think it's time I pay them a little visit." The next day, I drove to my parents' house, gripping the letter in my hands. I knocked, and when Mom opened the door, her expression instantly turned to stone. "Oh, so now you decide to show up." I refused to take the bait, holding up the letter instead. "You seriously thought this would work?" She crossed her arms defiantly. "It's what's fair." I let out a sharp laugh. "Fair? You want to charge me for being your child while expecting me to support you for the rest of your lives?" Dad appeared in the doorway, a smug look on his face. "We sacrificed a lot for you, Charlotte, and now you're abandoning us." I stared at them, shaking my head. "No, Dad. You abandoned me when you made it evident that my children fell short, when you deceived and took from me, when you assigned a monetary value to my worth." Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. "If you don't want to pay, then I suppose we'll have to involve lawyers." I met her gaze unfazed. "Go ahead." She blinked. I crossed my arms. "Take me to court. Try to explain to a judge why you're suing your own daughter for expenses from 20 years ago. Let's see how that unfolds." Silence enveloped us, and for the first time, they appeared uncertain. Dad cleared his throat. "We just thought you want to make amends." I laughed. "Oh, I am making things right at this very moment." I tore the letter in half, observing their eyes widen in disbelief. "I am finished being your personal ATM, Mom gasped. "You ungrateful little." I pivoted on my heel. "Merry Christmas," I called over my shoulder, striding back to my car. And for the first time in my life, I felt a sense of lightness as I drove away. I realized something profound. They weren't upset about the money, they were troubled because, for the first time ever, I held all the power and I wasn't about to relinquish it. I had hoped that after tearing apart their absurd demand for money, my parents would finally relent, that perhaps they would reflect on the ruins of their own arrogance and understand they had pushed me too far. But individuals like them never change. They only escalate. It began with a simple text from Mom, just 2 days before Christmas. "Mom, this is ridiculous. We're family. You don't turn your back on family over a silly argument." I chose to ignore it. The following day, another message arrived. "Mom, we forgive you. Come to." Christmas dinner loomed ahead, a moment to erase the past. I nearly chuckled at the thought of forgiveness. Hours later, a message from Christopher pierced through the air. They were truly hurting. "Charlotte, just apologize so we can move on," he urged. I rolled my eyes. In his eyes, I was the villain. I crafted a response tinged with sarcasm. "They weren't hurting when they stole from me or when they declared my kids unwelcome. I figured they'd manage just fine." I hit send and promptly blocked his number. Then Christmas Eve arrived and Jackson and I had just as I added the finishing touches to the tree, Emma and Oliver twirled around the living room in their pajamas, their excitement bubbling over, making sleep seem impossible. It was a perfect scene until the doorbell chimed. Jackson and I exchanged a glance, disbelief etched on his face as he muttered, "No way." I approached the door and peered through the peephole, confirming my suspicion. Mom and Dad were on the other side. For a moment, I contemplated ignoring them, but then I noticed the giant, beautifully wrapped box they held. With a resigned sigh, I opened the door. "What do you want?" I asked, and Mom's face brightened with a forced cheerfulness. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." Dad extended the gift towards the children, but I crossed my arms defiantly. "No thanks." Mom's smile faltered as she urged Charlotte, "Don't be stubborn. Let's not ruin Christmas over this." I shot back, "You already ruined Christmas when you said my children weren't good enough for your table. Remember that." Her mouth opened and then closed, a moment of realization dawning. Dad sighed, "Come on, Charlotte, let's just be a family again." I gazed at them, feeling nothing but weariness. "You don't want to be a family," I said softly. "You want me to return to being useful." Their silence spoke volumes, revealing all I needed to know. I needed to know. I shook my head. "Take your gift and go." Mom's expression hardened. "Charlotte, don't be selfish. Think about the children." I smiled coldly. "I am thinking about the children. That's exactly why you're not in their lives anymore." Dad's jaw tightened. "You really want to do this?" I exhaled. "I already did." And with that, I shut the door in their faces. That night, we had the best Christmas ever. Emma and Oliver tore into their presents, their laughter echoing through the house. We drank hot cocoa, played board games, and watched Christmas movies until they drifted off on the couch, and for the first time in my life, Christmas transformed into something deeper. It became about us, true family, chosen family, the kind that exists without conditions, the kind that doesn't require you to earn love. It's the kind that loves you simply because they want to, not because they anticipate something in return. I believe that was the conclusion of it all. After being cut off financially, humiliated during the holidays, and rejected at my front door, I thought my parents would finally. The guests and I was caught up in the festive atmosphere, believing that this night would mark a turning point. Yet, as the clock inched closer to midnight, I felt an unexpected shift. I had thought I was free, but their lingering influence loomed larger than I had anticipated. The joy of the evening was palpable, with Emma and Oliver darting about, their laughter ringing through the air, but beneath the surface, a tension brewed. I had envisioned this night as a clean slate, a moment to embrace new beginnings, but the reality was far more complicated than I had prepared for. With a gentle smile gracing his lips, it was our night, our celebration. Then came the knock. I froze, my stomach twisting in knots. Jackson glanced at me, a silent question in his eyes. I walked to the door, took a deep breath, and opened it. There they stood, Mom, Dad, Christopher, and Christopher's wife, Madison. It felt like an ambush. I crossed my arms, bracing myself. "What do you want?" I asked. Mom smiled, but it was that same forced, sugary tone she always adopted when she wanted something. "We just want to talk." "No thanks," I replied flatly. Dad sighed, his patience wearing thin. "Allie, enough. You've made your point. Now let's fix this before things escalate." I narrowed my eyes, questioning the meaning behind her words. Mom exchanged a glance with Christopher. "We just don't want this to affect the kids." Something in her tone sent a shiver down my spine. "What are you talking about?" Christopher stepped forward, arms crossed over his chest, as if he were the one wronged. "Mom and Dad have been talking to a lawyer." A cold wave of dread washed over me. "A lawyer?" I repeated slowly. Mom nodded, her eyes shining with a false sense of sympathy. "We're just worried, Charlotte. Severing ties with their true family over a trivial misunderstanding is unjust to them." My heart raced as I processed the words. "What are you implying?" Dad cleared his throat, and I braced myself. "We've been exploring grandparents' rights." For a moment, all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears, and then I erupted into laughter, no mere chuckle, but a loud, unrestrained cackle. They believed they could legally intrude back into my life, into my children's lives. Christopher's expression twisted in confusion. "What's so funny?" I wiped my eyes, still chuckling. "Oh, you're serious? You really believe any judge will see this situation and side with you?" With your mom's lips pressed tight, "We've done nothing wrong." "Nothing wrong," I reiterated, stepping closer. "You stole from me, treated my kids like they were less than. And now, because I finally cut you off, you think you can just bully your way back in?" Dad's expression darkened. "You don't want to do this, Charlotte." I met his glare with a smile. "Oh, but I do." I pulled out my phone and held it up. "I want you to think very carefully about what you're about to do." I spoke with a chill in my voice, armed with every text, every voicemail, every demand for money. "I promised you if you pursue this, I will bury you." Madison gasped. Charlotte, come on, she pleaded, but I snapped, my eyes locked on my parents. You have no case. You know it, I know it, and if you keep pushing me, I will ensure that everyone you know sees exactly who you really are. A beat of silence followed, then Mom's face twisted in anger. You're being unreasonable. I smiled. No, Mom, I'm finally being smart. I stepped back into my house and grabbed the door. Happy New Year, I said. With a gentle finality, I closed the door, leaving them standing there, their hollow threats dissipating into the air. They understood deep down that their claims were baseless, that defeat was theirs to bear. In the weeks that followed, silence enveloped me. No messages, no calls, just an absence that felt liberating. For the first time, I was unshackled from their expectations. The relentless pressure to appease them lifted, the cycle of guilt and manipulation severed. Months later, on a bright spring afternoon, I found myself on the porch, observing Emma and Oliver as they chased each other, laughter echoing in the warm breeze. Bubbles danced in the yard as Jackson handed me a lemonade and settled beside me. The stillness enveloped us. I nodded. Yeah, feels good. He smirked. Think they'll ever try again? I sipped my drink, my gaze fixed on my kids as they laughed, delighting in the popping bubbles. It didn't matter. I had already won. I had my kids, my true family, and I would never allow anyone to make them feel unwanted again.